What is up, Fantasyland? Thanks for joining us for another Thursday tailgate. Big game tonight in the AFC North between the Steelers and the Browns. I got my boy Dan with me. Week 3 is upon us. We have a ton of stuff to go through with our monster guest tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, managing editor of Fantasy Pros, betting pros, ranker, host of the Fitz on Fantasy Podcasts. You know him. We love him. We appreciate his time tonight. Pat, welcome to the tailgate.
Oh, JD, thank you for having me on. Great to be here with you and Dan, and looking forward to chopping it up in advance of this thrilling Thursday night showdown in the AFC North.
Firepower-filled Thursday nighter, right?
I kind of like these.
We're all going to look like idiots because they're going to end up, like going 37-40 or something.
100%, Dan. 100%. All the sharps have it low, so you know it's going to pull up.
I mean, it's great to have matchups like Chiefs-Chargers last week. Everyone gets excited about those. But I kind of like the scruffy Thursday night matchups where everyone on Twitter is like making fun of the teams, and those are fun too.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, and hopefully Theo will be joining us. He was caught unexpectedly with a couple things going on, but he's going to try to be on if he can. So, but meanwhile, the three of us will soldier on.
Yeah, I think Andrew might be jumping on as well. But let's get to it. We got a lot to cover. We want to make sure we're done by 8, so you guys can be ready for the big game. Get your lineup set. Last week was an interesting one, Pat. I mean, this season's been an interesting one. What's a lesson that you learned last week?
That Garrett Wilson is awesome. That Drake London is really good. I kind of suspected Drake London may be good, but Garrett Wilson has been a surprise. Shouldn't have been. I mean, as highly as he was drafted, and the fact that he played at Ohio State, and like Dan, I'm up in Big Ten country, so I've been exposed to Garrett Wilson before. But I don't know. I mean, I think we need to get the lesson that rookie wide receivers, especially ones drafted in the first round, are really good fantasy values. And we saw that last year with Jamar Chase. His ADP, I think, was wide receiver 31 before the season, part of it because he had that case of the drops in August. Jalen Waddle's ADP was wide receiver 42 last year. In 2020, we saw something similar with CeeDee Lamb, who was wide receiver 39. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 49. So pounce on those bargains in next year's draft, man. Like, get these first-round receivers.
It's the ugly jersey syndrome, right, Dan? The Jets, Washington jerseys, they're just ugly. It doesn't matter who's wearing them.
Right, exactly. And I mean, a lot of times that just means that there's more opportunity, just because the passing game isn't really that established already. So it's sometimes a little bit easier for players to work their way in. And that was one of the things I definitely worked on doing with my redraft teams is I have a lot of Pickens, I have a lot of Olave, Burks, London. Not quite as much, but still a good amount of Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. So, I guess I said, I do have a lot of Olave. But Garrett Wilson I have a fair amount of too. And Jahan Dotson, that's who else. So, and for the same reasons that Pat was saying. I mean, you can pluck these guys in the middle rounds and, they're the most likely ones to give you upside. If you're looking at Garrett Wilson or Julio Jones, I'm going Garrett Wilson every time. Just because I think Julio is, we're already seeing the downside of Julio. We know what the upside is, but we're already seeing the downside. Whereas a lot of times these rookie wide receivers, they can come out and really help us out, especially at the middle and end of the year.
We have guys like Curtis Samuel, speaking of Washington, just look at Carson Wentz, the points he's putting up. So this is the time of year where it gets tricky, right, Pat? Because you have guys that maybe unexpectedly putting high points, and then you have guys unexpectedly maybe underperforming. So keep it simple. What's one player right now that you think is a good sell high?
Oh, man. Maybe James Robinson. And I love this guy, and I've got him in a couple of dynasty leagues, and love having him. And he's produced for me. Like I got him on a tip from Alex Dunlap of Roster Watch in a couple of Dynasty startups in 2020, and he has just paid huge dividends. So I'm a big fan, but he is an early down back playing on a team that is probably going to be seeing a lot of negative game scripts this year. I mean, the Jaguars might be better, but let's face it, they're going to have their fair share of negative game scripts. And early down backs on teams that see a lot of negative game scripts, not really good investments. So while it's all worked out so far with him, and I think he's like top 10 in scoring right now in half-point PPR. I don't think he's a great investment. Find someone who's sentimental about his great start and the comeback story and maybe try to sell him.
He's still a top 25 in PPR.
Is he top 25 in PPR? Yeah,
20.
I mean, and that's the thing. Like in PPR, he's just not going to have the value because like the pass catching is going to be ETNs. Like I don't know.
Sorry, Pat. That's super flex. So keep that in mind, guys. When you're so he's probably like top 15 to 20ish.
Yeah,
okay.
He's top 6 running back in standard PPR right now.
There you go.
He is. Wow.
So that's it's pretty crazy to think about, but yeah, it's that's what's happening.
Welcome, Andrew. Glad
guys.
you can join from the Nola Quinta tonight.
I just added myself to the stream. Don't mind me.
Yeah, but you're part. I gave you all the powers, man. You got all the powers.
Hey Pat, how are you?
What's up, Andrew? How are
Nice
you?
to see ya.
Nice
I love
to
that
see you.
Callaway hat.
Oh, thank you.
I'm brand loyal to Callaway as myself.
Oh, nice. Well, yeah, Titleist pays me to wear this Callaway hat. It's a sponsorship deal.
Got it.
You'll reverse sponsorship. I like it.
So late on the air horn. It's too late now. Sorry, Pat. I'll get you in the next. We need another lap so I can get the air horn going. I got too many screens going. Andrew, you got a quick sell high before we go to the other end of the spectrum? Not really.
No. Skip me for now.
All right, we'll
Just
skip
join
you.
me.
So other end of it, and Pat, you're a Packer. Some might say maybe you pair up James Robinson with a couple seconds, Dan, and offer it for AJ Dillon. Would that be a good buy low out there in Green Bay? And who's your buy low right now as we go into week 3?
I mean, I feel like Kyle Pitts is the obvious one, but I'll go less obvious and say Cam Akers. Like, I think the tectonic plates are still shifting underneath this backfield right now, and we were sort of fooled by the Darrell Henderson usage in week 1, where he was almost used as a workhorse against the Bills. Something a little closer to a 50-50 split in week 2, and like I wouldn't be surprised if Akers started to get this backfield more in his favor. Henderson's he's a smaller dude. And he kind of got banged around last week. He took some hard hits. He's a guy who's had a little bit of trouble staying healthy. I just feel like Akers can be the 3-down back that Todd Gurley was for the Rams a couple of years ago. And like if someone gets a majority share of this backfield, like we want to have that person because the Rams in Sean McVay's 5 years have never finished outside the top 11 in total yards. Like, they're going to produce yards, they're going to move the ball, and, I think we want a piece of it. That is, if the backfield isn't too convoluted.
You starting Akers or Pollard this week, Pat?
Pollard. Still waiting for that dust to settle, but I think before long, it's going to settle.
Wheeler agrees with the Akers buy. Dan, how do you feel about it, and who's someone you're maybe buying right now?
Yeah, I'm definitely in on that. And interestingly enough, Pat, I was offered a deal today in a Dynasty League where somebody was wanting to sell me James Robinson plus for Cam Akers. And when I pushed the plus to where it would take it for me to actually close the deal, he backed away. So there needs to be a good amount of plus to make that one work for me.
Agreed.
Yeah, and for my buy low, it's got to be CeeDee Lamb. He's really everything that we said to start before the start of the season. The whole just the story behind him that we wanted to tell ourselves is still out there. The only thing that's changed is Dak is hurt right now, and but when we talk about Dak coming back week 5, maybe week 6 or something like that, CeeDee Lamb should be ready to roll. And until then, I mean, Cooper Rush is definitely going to be leaning on him. Maybe a fewer touchdowns, but I think he's still going to do pretty well like he did last week with PPR, where he got like 7 for 75 or something like that. I think it was. So he'll still give you playable scores, and coming down the stretch, he could be a league winner.
$41 got me Darrell Williams on my James Conner roster. Pat, who is your waiver wire darling this week?
I was surprised this guy was less than 50% rostered in Yahoo leagues coming into this week, and I don't know if that's still the case. Treylon Burks. Like, how about him if you can get him? And I know he's not available in a lot of leagues. Yeah, like, I don't know, man. Going back to the rookie wide receiver thing, I think he is the wide receiver 1 for Tennessee. And although that really hasn't meant too much in these first 2 weeks with the Titans looking kind of gross on offense, I don't know. Eventually, I think he is going to be getting like consistently 7, 8, 9 targets a week. I don't know if those targets are going to be coming from Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis, but I'm pretty optimistic about the guy. And he caught a pass on a crossing route, and I didn't catch the number right away. And as he was running after the catch, I'm like, wow, who is this dude? He's really fast. And it was Burks. So, like, for all the lamenting about, like, how slow his 40 time was at the combine, he looked plenty fast on that one. And maybe he's just one of those guys who's got game speed.
Yeah, and the Titans go Raiders, Colts, Commanders, Colts. So I don't think they're not going to be playing the Buffalo Bills defense all the time. So I like that one.
Yeah,
yep,
Wheeler's with me on that one. So that's good.
He's got all his students picking up players instead of doing their quizzes at the end of class. Before we get into kind of the second half here, we get a little more specific, more into scenarios, situations. We got a fun week coming up, Pat. What's your favorite matchup I know you're excited for tonight, but is there another matchup that you're excited about?
Oh man, I'd say Packers Buccaneers, except that's going to be like a grinded out slog fest. That's not going to be very aesthetically pleasing. So it's got to be that Bills Dolphins game. I mean, that just the potential for a shootout there. Just to figure out if the Dolphins are for real. I'm really fascinated by that one.
52.5 is the over-under on that one, and 41.5 is the over-under in the Green Bay Tampa game.
Deservedly so.
That's almost high.
All right, guys. Before we get into the second half, we keep telling you guys we really appreciate all the support you guys are giving us. Keep smashing the like, the subscribe. Pass this show on to one friend. That's all we ask. One person in your family. We want to get to 1,000 subs, so we appreciate all the help you guys do. That helps this show get recognition. And check out the links below for exclusive sign-up bonuses with our partners, myffpc.com, Underdog, and Viridian Global. Pat,
JD, I don't think there's anything wrong with telling an enemy either. Tell a friend, tell an enemy.
tell an enemy.
Yeah,
and
just
that's a very good point, Andrew. And I actually just want to point out the FFPC right now, because they know how degenerate we all are. They did come up with a completely new game, $35 buy-in, $200 buy-in. It's like a weekly type of game, very similar to their playoff structure. If you're familiar with the playoff challenge, so go check that out, myffpc.com. If you're not signed up, there's a link below to get an exclusive sign-up offer. Pat, San Fran. Always interesting when Jimmy G, with the Lance situation. Now we have the injury, unfortunately, for the young kid. But with Jimmy G there, how does this affect the pieces for you in San Fran? Are you comfortable starting a guy like Jeff Wilson in the starting running back position there, I guess, if you want to call it that, with the 49ers?
Yeah, until Elijah Mitchell gets back, I think I am comfortable with Jeff Wilson. It seems like he's going to be the primary guy there. They've elevated Marlon Mack from the practice squad, but I don't know how much they want to use him, and they seem very reluctant to use Jordan Mason. I know I picked him up speculatively in a few leagues and pretty much immediately dropping him. I guess I'll wait one more week, but seems like they just view him as kind of a special teamer. So, yeah, I feel good about Wilson. As for the other weapons with Jimmy G, I don't know. I was a Trey Lance advocate and, had him in a lot of leagues and felt optimistic that in addition to, the anticipated rushing windfall that he was going to give us, that he could be like at least a I don't know, respectable NFL passer. And, we never really got to find that out, but I know the Trey Lance naysayers now are viewing Jimmy Garoppolo as like a Joe Montana type figure who's going to come in and make it all right for everyone. To me, Jimmy G's just like a very average to slightly below average NFL quarterback, but like good enough that in a polarized target tree like this, where it's basically this huge percentage of targets going to Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle, I think those guys will be fine. Like he's a perfectly adequate target distribution mechanism.
Yep, totally agree. And I think it is unfortunate for Trey Lance too, just because of the fact that he's going to be on year 3 now of his deal before he can come back, and still San Francisco doesn't know what they have with him. He doesn't himself know how well he can adapt to the NFL. I mean, there's just a lot of question marks there that this really made it an unfortunate situation, and especially with him not even really playing the year before he got drafted. It's been a long time since we've seen Trey Lance play. What does that do to a guy? I'll be definitely interested to see what that is next year.
But Jimmy, sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
So I called Dan yesterday. I literally had only 12 minutes of my day, and Dan got all 12 of the minutes to talk about waivers and trades. So Elijah Mitchell was available in one of my main event leagues, and I called Dan, and I had a number in my mind, and then I ended up texting with Adam Krautworth later, and so I ended up getting him because Adam pulled me up. My question is, I started at 100 that I was going to do, Dan, and everyone can answer this. What was my final number that I got him at? So I got him. I'm going to tell you I got him, and I'm going to tell you I started at 100 and I came up. What was the number I was able to get Elijah Mitchell for?
450.
Okay, JD.
You started at 100?
I started at 100.
Where was Elijah Mitchell available? What the hell league is it?
In a main event, in an FFPC main event. So I called Dan. I was like, "Hey Dan, I have a number in mind," and Dan ended up making me think that my number was too low. But talk to me.
Well, if you went from 100, I'm thinking like 289 or something like that. 280.
I was going to say like 360.
I like it. I like them all. Yeah, 320. So yeah, that was. I ended up landing at 320. I think I was pretty happy with that. So I mean, to use that as a jumping off point, I still think the Jeff Wilson's. I think everyone's calling him the Jag. Just a guy. I'm seeing that around. But I think you nailed it, Pat. Right? Jordan Mason's only done special team snaps. I'd love for it to be him. We would have loved for it to be TDP. But it just seems like it's kind of falling into okay. It's gonna be Jeff Wilson for now, and it could be that Elijah Mitchell's an absolute smash if he's truly healthy here in a couple months. So. We'll see, and obviously, maybe Wilson can help tread water for a little bit. I'm just hopeful Jimmy G can spread it to some more Ayuk for me and my exposures personally.
I sure feel a lot better about starting Wilson this coming week than I did starting him last week.
Yeah.
When we were still worried about Trey Lance sucking away carries and Tyrion Davis-Price sucking away carries and all that. So now he definitely looks like the main game in town.
Going to the AFC. Cincinnati was a nice story last year. People had high expectations for it. You had some people that were saying, we're going to see that regression with the offense. It looks awful, the O-line. What do you think is happening in Cincy? Is this like a buy low scenario? Do you think this is just a kind of a foreshadowing of what we're going to see this season? How do you feel about the Bengals, Pat, right now?
I think they'll be okay, JD. Like I think that things will be back to normal before long. And I mean, they added a lot of talent on the offensive line in the offseason, but maybe it takes a little bit of time to consolidate that talent, especially, the new preseason where teams tend to not give a crap and not really play their guys together that much. I don't know how many reps the starters got together in the preseason, but I think it's going to take some time for them to gel. And Burrow is not an easy guy to block for. Like, he does not mind holding onto the ball to try to wait for his guys to break open. And he is going to eat more than his fair share of sacks, like, for as long as he's in the league. He's just one of those guys. So, I think it'll be okay. I think the offensive line will get it together. And there's just too much skill position talent here for it not to work. And we know that, like, the individual parts on that line are good. It's just a matter of how quickly it comes together.
Yep, totally agree that it's got to get better than this. I will say that Cincinnati is a team I picked to regress, and specifically in the passing game. I felt like the run game might be okay, but the passing game, it just seemed like last year everything went just perfect. Burrow was throwing touchdowns left and right. His touchdown percentage of his total passes was much higher than what you would expect that he could maintain. And then, also just the fact that, like Pat was saying, I wonder sometimes if his brain is writing checks that his body's not going to be able to cash. Because he's running around there like he's Big Ben, and he's not Big Ben. His body's not Big Ben for sure. So I hope he can learn how to get rid of the ball a little bit, and just learn to give up on a play every now and then, and just live to fight for the next down. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, it's extremely disappointing. I think it's just an offensive line thing, even though they did try to revamp it. Obviously, I was big into Higgins this year, so I'm not loving the start. I'm hopeful that the talent ends up shining through, and I can still get some dividends in the passing game. I mean, I've actually liked the way that Mixon's looked, although I did see, I think that he hasn't really had like an uptick in his third down target share. So I'd love to see just Mixon as a whole get more involved in all downs. I could really use a lot less Samaje Perine. I know I was holding against them. I had money on the Bengals, outright in the Super Bowl, and I just astounded that he was on the field for that drop pass. So I'm never going to forgive him for that. And anyways, just I think it's just an offensive line thing. And Dan, you want to talk about the Burrow versus Kyler bet that you had at the beginning of the season? I like that one a lot.
Yeah, so I made a bet with a friend that he was very anti-Kyler, and I said, well, what do you want to bet something on this? And he said, well, I'll just bet you that anybody who's being drafted around him is going to perform better. And I said, well, I'm not going to take that bet against everybody. I said, we got to pick one player. So he said, fine, you can pick the player, and I'll tell you if I'll take the bet or not. So I knew he was a big Bengals fan. So and Burrow fan, so I picked Joe Burrow for that bet, and he took me up on it. So
nice.
And kind of my part of the bet is just that Burrow will regress a little bit, and things just won't go quite as well as they did this year. And if Kyler stays healthy, I mean basically both of them I think have some chance of being injured for a few games.
We just need Theo to take over coaching for Kingsbury. Or literally anybody else.
Yes. Yeah.
What's up, Pat? What's up, Andrew? How you guys doing?
What's up, Theo?
Thanks for joining us, Theo. Appreciate you jumping on. We know you had some stuff to deal with, so appreciate your time, man.
Yeah. As Pat Foreman said, Kingsbury's plan of just greasing up Kyler Murray and sending him out there to run around for 20 seconds seems to be working okay.
Is that a greased up deaf guy joke from Family Guy?
I believe so. Yes.
I'm all in if that's the case. It's great.
Shout out to 1912 as well. He's been putting some nice little videos of the characters on the show here, so we appreciate him and all the guys in the listener league. He's calling the weather tonight, saying it's going to be a windy one, so it should be even more interesting tonight. Let's go to KC, guys. This has been another not an anomaly, but kind of a puzzle that we've had to kind of figure out, especially in the receiving game. Pat, who's your receiver of choice? Are you kind of staying away from the situation? You waiting around, being patient to see if anyone stands out, or do you think it's going to be flat like this between these receivers all year?
I've kind of been thinking about this one this week. Like, is it crazy to wonder if Mecole Hardman might be the most valuable guy in this wide receiver corps? Like, I know a lot of people have written off McCole Hardman and just think he sucks. But the usage has been kind of interesting. Like, he is getting more targets per route run than the other guys so far. And it's early. We're dealing with small sample sizes, of course. The average depth of target, I mean, his average depth of target, I think, is 13.3 yards. And right now for, I want to say for MVS, it's only 8.7, which is kind of strange. And Juju, 7.8 yards. So he's getting more of those high-value Tyreek Hill targets that were vacated. I don't know. Tell me I'm crazy, you guys.
Not entirely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Mecole, it's at least on some drives, it seems like Mahomes has been looking for him. I don't know if it's something they're specifically drawing up, or maybe it's Sky Moore being really slow out the gate. I think has helped Hardman a lot. But it's certainly up in the air. I think that Juju right now, you should just treat as a wide receiver 3 and be fine with it. If you drafted him, you're stuck with him. He's a wide receiver 3. But I think that one of the Hardman, MVS, or Sky Moore trio will emerge. I don't know how long it's going to take, though. So Hardman might be the best bet out of those 3 guys.
And like, Hardman's getting red zone targets right now. He's got 3 so far this year in 2 games. He's getting deep targets, 4 so far in a couple games. So he's getting significant, fantasy attention from Mahomes. And sometimes it's just a matter of trust, with the quarterback. And he's been there the longest. These guys are all new, kind of like that Rodgers, in Green Bay. It's probably just a matter of trust. And Hardman's talent is going to cap where he goes with it. But for now, he might be the guy that gets, like you said, most of the attention when it matters. Let's go to my Siri or whatever this thing on my phone is just started talking. Sorry, guys. Kirk Cousins. Or you know what, Dan? You asked this question. I think this is the one you threw in, so you take it. Sorry, brother.
All right, yeah. So my question is this: after we saw what we saw against Philly, do we think Kirk Cousins can support a number 1 overall wide receiver? Like Cooper Kupp was last year. Maybe not to quite that same extent, but it might take that the way Kupp is going. So I guess that's the first question, Pat. Do you think Cousins is capable of pushing Justin Jefferson up into Cooper Kupp land?
All right, so I'm not the biggest Kirk Cousins fan in the world. And, Dan, I know I got to tread lightly here with you being a Vikings fan, although I do have friends in Minnesota who hate Kirk Cousins.
Just lay it on us, Pat. Just don't hold back.
So I don't know, like,
straight.
I'm curious whether you're pro or anti Kirk Cousins, because I do know friends in Minnesota who are anti. And I mean, I think we saw, like, every time people want to anoint him as like this above average quarterback, we get a game like we got last Monday. And then every time people think Kirk Cousins sucks, he goes berserk against someone and throws 4 touchdowns. So, I think he's like a perfectly average NFL starting quarterback and, below average when it's a big game in prime time. Can he support a number 1 receiver? Yes, I think so. But I don't think he's the guy who's going to support a wide receiver 1 and like a guy who's like a low-end wide receiver 2 and like some other guy who's like maybe a playable spot starter. Like, I think if Jefferson has that kind of season, it's going to be at Thielen's expense. Like, Thielen's going to hit the wall, and maybe KJ Osborne won't do that much either.
Good.
Okay. Fair enough. I guess what I would say on
I accept that. I accept a bunch of zeros from Thielen and KJ Osborne, and maybe I'd be a couple touches. That's fine.
I'd be willing to sacrifice Dalvin Cook catching another ball for the rest of the year if Justin Jefferson can do what we think he can do.
I accept your bargain, Pat.
Pat, can you tell how many of us are heavily invested in Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, and with good reason. Reason. I mean, he just destroyed my Packers in week 1. Of course, the Packers were electing to try covering him with Preston Smith on some snaps, which maybe not the optimal strategy for defending a guy of his quality.
They only did that because B.J. Raji wouldn't come out of retirement. Otherwise, they were going to put him on him.
To kind of put go ahead, Theo.
No, I was going to say, even in the loss, that he gets another 12 targets. So he goes 11 targets and 12 targets. Now they have a get-right game against Detroit. That game looks kind of like a shootout to me. So, I think Justin Jefferson's going to be a little bit more like Week 1 Justin Jefferson than
Buy low.
Week 2 Justin Jefferson.
Buy low if you can. I mean,
Yeah.
if someone's got hands, any of these top guys that you came in high on, if anyone's getting nervous right now. Pat, right now you've got 2 freight trains, Buffalo, Miami, on a collision course this weekend. They're coming in hot, Miami. Is this going to continue? Are we going to see fireworks this weekend? Does Buffalo's defense shut them down? And how do you see this Miami offense moving forward after this weekend?
That's what I can't wait to find out, JD. Like, I don't think anyone's going to shut down Buffalo. That offense has just been a juggernaut. But it will be interesting to see how Miami does against a Buffalo defense that is seemingly completely unfazed by the absence of Tre'Davious White and Ed Oliver. Haven't missed a beat. Just been impregnable wall so far. And but man, what we saw from Miami and Baltimore last week was just so exciting. And Mike McDaniel has this offense clicking right now. I mean, a lot of it was aggressive throws downfield from Tua. And, was that a one-off or can he do it again against Buffalo? So I can't wait to find out. I don't know the answer. I don't know which way I bet it yet, but I'm eager to see. Actually, I know how I'd bet it. I'd bet the Bills and give the 4.5 points or whatever it is right now. But, I would at least give the Dolphins a fighting chance to be able to move the ball because, it's a fun passing game, man. The Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle combo is pretty impressive.
Dan, I'm going to go to you because I know you were high on Edmonds coming in the season, as were many. Nervous? What are you doing with Edmonds right now?
Yeah, so that kind of folds back into the point I wanted to make about the Miami passing game, which is maybe we shouldn't be surprised that Miami came out and were so heavy on the pass because Mike McDaniel, we think, is a smart coach who looks at a lot of analytics, and we just looked at the fact that he was coming out of, basically the Shanahan offense, where it's predicated on the run, but McDaniel seems like maybe he's got different ideas about what's the best way to run an offense, and he's going out there and doing it. So I think that we were probably, or at least I was over exuberant about what Chase McDaniel might do, or Chase Edmonds might do, just based on the fact that I was figuring, it would be kind of some sort of a continuation of the San Francisco offense. I wasn't giving McDaniel enough credit on that, and I think that we probably need to give him a little bit more credit. And I think he's perfectly willing to use Raheem Mostert just as much. So I'm not super bullish on Edmonds going forward until I see more out of him. Because it looks like he's kind of drifting towards that same role that he had with Arizona last year, which is pitching in a little bit in the run game, but mostly, kind of the receiving back. So he's still getting some high-value touches, but he's not getting near the volume of those that what we need for him to probably pay off his draft choice or his draft capital. What do you think about that, Pat?
Yeah, boy, I got a lot of Chase Edmonds late. The thing is, do we think Raheem Mostert is going to stay healthy more than a few more games? I still like the Edmonds versatility and think that is going to support him as at least a flex-worthy caliber guy this year. So I don't know. I'm still not totally giving up hope on Chase Edmonds.
And Edmonds still did make a big play towards the end of the game. I think that I kind of agree with Pat. I think that Edmonds, and Dan, you bring up him having his previous role in this hypercharged offense that's putting up big time points. Being the number 3 type receiver who's getting some carries mixed in is not necessarily the worst thing. I do worry that McDaniel's going to go with kind of a hot hand, and we'll see kind of an every week approach where you'll see some Mostert games and some Edmonds games. That would be kind of the nightmare scenario because I have some Mostert shares and a lot of Edmonds shares as well. But I mean, I want Dolphins right now. I think they look like they really know what they're doing, and the defense keeps pressure. It's at situations. Baltimore scored a lot, and they were able to come back. So I'm into the Dolphins. I think that Gesicki had a wide open touchdown. I know Andrew loved to see that last weekend. But he was wide open on the screenplay near the goal line, which you don't really see too often. And I think these kind of tertiary pieces might end up becoming a little bit more valuable because Waddle and Hill are just so successful right now.
Yeah, I think it feels like a lot of consolidation around Hill and Waddle. I know I'm happy that we lost out on Edmonds in a couple of the leagues that I didn't even have to argue about. So I don't know. I mean, I know Theo, like we were. I think we were joking around. Hard to tell sometimes about. I didn't like Mostert. I didn't like Edmonds, and I think you looked at me when we were doing the varsity. You're like, well, you gotta like one of them because otherwise you're gonna say you like Gaskin. And I think kind of my reaction is not like they're all dead, but it's all like it's kind of gross. And what if the answer is kind of like none of them, and there's just a lot of consolidation? But I guess that assumes that everyone's healthy. And anyways, it kind of feels like it's Mike McDaniel's and analytics unleashed. And he's like, we're just gonna get the ball to our stud sprinters. So
heat of the moment, man, in a live draft. You can't have a filter.
Andrew, what do you like Gaskin here? Like
yeah, exactly. That was kind of.
It was like a 10th round.
You gotta like one.
I'm looking at that $77 Hardway best ball we did, the first one of the year, where I have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then your boy Gesicki. So that's that pretty good body to the team to compete with the Sharks that are in that league. Guys, let's finish this off. Dan, let's keep your question if we have time. I just want to go around the horn, start with Pat. Tonight, who do you like, not like in your starting lineups when we're talking fantasy, and how do you think this game finishes?
I think they're more not likes than likes, JD. Maybe both of the Cleveland running backs against the Steelers defense. It hasn't been bad against the run so far, but last year they gave up more rushing yards to running backs than any team except the Texans. And the Texans at least had the excuse of having negative game scripts all year long. So I like those guys. Maybe Deontay Johnson, maybe Freiermuth, although our guy 12 was saying that the winds are, 20 miles an hour tonight. I know, like here in the Chicago area, it was a little breezy today, so maybe we're going to see some of that. Definitely not into the quarterbacks. Not really any of the Browns pass catchers. So, let's stick with the running game. Maybe Najee can get it going, but I'm not real optimistic about that, quite honestly.
Theo, how about you?
I'm going with the Browns. I'm actually interested to see Deontay Johnson. He's got 22 targets in 2 games. We haven't seen him have a big one. The wind is scary, but it's not so scary that I think Deontay couldn't, make a big play and at least return some fantasy value. In terms of the game, I think the Browns win. I think they'll keep riding Chubb, and it's Mitch Trubisky on the road, man. It's Mitch Trubisky on the road. So we want, for Steelers fans, I hope they go to Kenny Pickett at some time because this offense is just spinning its wheels.
Theo is the king of the. I don't even know, what do you call these memes? I don't even know. What do you call?
Yeah, he's the king of memes.
This is a meme.
Sure.
This is
King
a
of
meme.
king of the fantasy football memes. Like people steal his pictures and then try to come up with their own, and it's not even close, man. He's the king. So follow at the OG Fantasy. Dan, how you feeling about tonight's game and anyone you like in your lineup that we haven't talked about?
All right, so I made I got on Underdog in their pick'em, and I did a 3-way parlay just for fun. I took Nick Chubb for over 16.5 rushing attempts, George Pickens for under 2.5 receptions, and Deontay Johnson for over 5.5 receptions.
I really hope you're George Pickens. I hope you're George Pickens. I mean, I hope you win money, Dan. Obviously, you're my friend, but
yeah.
George Pickens. I mean, it would be really delightful to see George Pickens make a big play or two. How about 2 big catches?
As you know, I am the foremost George Pickens apologist anywhere around. So I'm all about that. I'm just thinking that with tonight, it's just probably not going to happen.
I got a quick question for Pat on this game, Pat, Dearness Johnson is active. Do you think that they're going to audition him to try to move him? Do you think that could be something we should be looking at?
Interesting. Maybe. I mean, whenever the guy's played, he's looked pretty good. I think he was.
Yeah.
Wasn't he PFF's like highest graded runner last year? You know, he looked fantastic in that Thursday night game against was it Denver? I think it was Denver where
Yes.
they had to play Case Keenum at quarterback and Dearness Johnson ran all over the Broncos. So that would be interesting. Like I don't know how much work he's realistically going to get, though, if Chubb and Hunt are there. You know what I mean? But I do like me some Dearness Johnson. You know, there are a lot of running back needy teams that could use that guy.
Andrew, what do you have before we close this out for tonight's game?
Hold on, have we all gone Browns in the points?
No, I'm going to go. I've got Pittsburgh plus 4.5 on this
Yeah,
one.
I'll do the same. Pittsburgh plus 4.5.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I got
underdog. Okay, good. Okay.
I got Pittsburgh too. I think they're 5-1 against the number against the Browns in their last 6 games.
So I'm on an island then. I was
going to say I was sorry. I had it the opposite way. I was going to go Browns because the one thing I learned is that you never go all the way across with all the picks because somebody's going to look or everyone's going to look bad when the game goes over. I'm going to go to the Browns.
Andrew's been studying media at the La Quinta.
That's right.
Theo, you're still on an island. Long island.
Media for dummies. Is anybody unironically or desperately starting tonight? Because I'm starting him in one dynasty where
Who's that you cut out? What was the name?
George Pickens.
Oh, Pickens.
Yeah, I'm starting him in one dynasty league, but I just didn't know if there's any other desperation Pickens plays for anybody.
I've got
the only one. You're the only one.
In one line.
No, I haven't had a dynasty in a productive struggle, so I don't really care. So I have him up there, but yeah, he's sat everywhere else. Okay, just wanted to see how desperate we all were in week 3 already.
He's playing like 80% of the snaps almost. You know, but the thing is, he's Mr. Go Route. I saw he's like one of the leaders in the NFL in most go routes run so far, and his average depth of target is like 21 yards.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely getting his wind sprints in. For sure.
Nice.
I've got a Chubb bet, Dan. I've got over 76 yards for Chubb, so hopefully he gives us that action tonight.
Oh yeah. I think that's a decent bet. So.
All right, guys. We appreciate you guys hanging with us tonight before the game. Pat, always a pleasure. Just hearing your voice, man. It's like I've never actually met you, but it's just such a familiar voice. We appreciate all the work you put out there, all the goodness. Remind the people where they can find you and all that goatness.
Yeah, thanks, JD. Really great being on with you and the guys. People can find me on Twitter at Fitz_FF. They can check out my stuff at fantasypros.com and check out the Fitz on Fantasy podcast, which comes out every Tuesday morning.
May all your rosters give you W's in week 3. Enjoy the week, guys. We'll check you all later.